Hello, guys. Last one. Oh my God.
Hi.
Hi. It goes fast, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
when we're busy, man. Jesus. uh, so yeah, I thought about like today talking about uh, different things, maybe like industry. Obviously, like solving some of your questions. If you have anything more specific, I can open any file here, like I mentioned before, or go through stuff here and make sure that things are as clear as possible today. But take it more like relaxed, like in a way. Um, I thought about doing this to start with. I mean, like you're following. Oops, you're probably following like sometimes what I post on my Instagram. But I thought this would be fun to just talk a little bit about it because it's always it's like remembering all those times and everything. It's like I posted this stuff like some of my first like CG work. Obviously, I did some stuff like before this. I was born in '71, so by here I was pretty old already. But basically, like I got to this industry when I was like 32 years old. So during this time here, I was actually just going to college for fine arts, but was completely unrelated to this. We didn't learn any CG or anything. And I always follow like this kind of passion. It's like I had a MSX computer when I was very young, and then I got an Amiga 500 later, and then I got like really passionate about it. Kind of like just seeing like those cheesy things. It's like the chrome ball on top of like the checkerboard kind of thing. And in Brazil it was a funny thing, right? Like living in Brazil, we had access to nothing. Like I lived like in a small city, and we had access to nothing. Like it's like any magazines, important stuff, we have no access. It was like all national magazines basically. It didn't cover anything. And to buy a computer, for example, there is no way someone would have the money to buy a computer. Even when they released, like my first actual PC was a DX2 66 megahertz, not the gigahertz, right? 66 megahertz. And it was a DX2 486 with 8 megabytes of RAM, which is amazing. And I remember like I had to save a good chunk of money to buy that. And because like there is no way for us to afford in Brazil back in the day, now it's still like the dollar now is like a 5 to 1, so it's pretty expensive. Everything in Brazil is very expensive right now. But back in the day, it was kind of like a similar thing. So I remember like there was this guy that everybody knew, that this guy would go like to Paraguay, kind of like he would cross the border and just get stuff like get stuff like at the price you buy in there, but without paying any taxes or anything, right? Like he just like would hide in his truck or something like that. So I remember like we would just like give the money to the guy, and he would just get like a computer for you from Paraguay, which would basically come like from the United States, from Miami, I believe. It would land in there. So that's the way I managed to buy my first computer, was basically like, it was like buy like across the border, basically. But I mean, like I was always passionate about this stuff. So I started doing this 3D thing using my first software on the PC was a 3ds, not the Max, not Max, was 3D Studio. And it was version 3.0, the first one we used. And we had a small company back in the day. It's like we start like a company kind of straight away, and we had it's like the software installed. But yeah, I always like, it's like I was always doing this kind of stuff like for fun. Even before this, what I was doing a lot of Photoshop work around like maybe like 95, was kind of like one of the first Photoshops or something. It was around 95, and then they had another one that was called August Photo Studio, and I used that one a lot. And I had some CG stuff that I was doing with Lightwave back in the day. It was like 1995 or 96 or something, using Lightwave for PC. And then basically like I started doing like some TV commercials, like local commercials and stuff back in the day. So it was like before this. But this one here was the first like time that I actually went for like more like organic kind of modeling kind of thing. And this was done in Softimage 3.0, 3.8. That was the first version of Softimage for the PC. Before it was just like Silicon Graphics, right? So we had no access to that because it's too expensive. But this one was an interesting one because my mom, she died in 1995. And then I moved to Brasilia, which is the capital of Brazil, in 1996, kind of like trying to leave behind, it's like any pain from, the loss and all that stuff. And trying to basically like give some meaning to my life was kind of like just working in the bank and kind of like completely away from art. It's like I used to draw a lot as a kid. It was kind of like, yeah, a little bit of a prodigy, it's like in a way that, it's like I got like, it's like my mom was paying like half of the amount you normally pay for a private school, because I was doing a lot of drawings for the school, it's like, so we got this little help from the school. Like it was kind of like a Catholic school. So the priests in there were like, oh no, we're going to help, it's like, you just pay half of it as long as you keep doing like this beautiful work and blah, blah. So I was doing like, gigantic drawings of their founder, it's like doing their games and blah, blah, blah. But I completely abandoned, it's like drawing because I felt taken advantage of, not by them, but by other people, it's like I would kind of like just do like lots of drawings like for free and stuff. And I kind of abandoned completely, but then it kind of like re-emerged when I saw this Amiga stuff, it's like, and then I kind of like, it's like, oh, it kind of like start tickling my, and then when it was like around the year, I think it was like, I don't remember when I got my first PC, but it was like 1993 or 4 or something. And so I kind of started because I was watching like some cinematics for, it was not cinematic, it was kind of like the cut scenes for a video game. Let me see, I'm curious now because like there is this video game that was called Crash and Burn for the 3DO. Let's see what's the year of this. So 1993, so check this out. That was pretty much the ballpark. I fell in love with the graphics of this game because the 3DO was kind of like a super expensive Panasonic video game back in the day. And we were just like playing like Super Nintendo, I was like, and I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And the cut scenes, they did everything in CG, not like the video part, but the weapons and the cars and everything. And when I noticed that they did this using the 3D Studio, I had to get 3D Studio. So I got 3D Studio installed, it was like in my first PC, and I started really getting to that stuff. But around here, I was already in college, I was like, so we managed to, when I went transfer to Brasilia, I asked my, like the department there, because they hired me to actually help to create like the visual language of their internal TV channel that they had, me and another group of people. And then, so we said like, we're going to need some software in here to be able to do that stuff because you're demanding a lot here. So first thing we thought, it was like, of course, let's ask them to buy 3D, the Softimage, right? So they bought Softimage 3.0 because it was like all the money from the bank. So we got a few licenses in there. And we got like the first Maya, when they released Maya 1.0, we installed as well. So it was pretty fun, And then while I was in college, I was there like for almost like 5 years. And during that time, I mean, like I was basically like I was working at the bank starting at 12. So basically like I would go like right after lunch, I would go to the bank. And then in the morning, I would go to college. So basically like I would have to be up at 7, go to college between 8 and 12, do a couple of classes in there, and then go to the bank in the afternoon. And then I would stay awake all the way like to 3 or 4 in the morning. It's like after my ex-wife, now ex-wife, she would go to sleep, and I would just like, really dig into this stuff, it's like, and start to, really getting obsessed with it. So basically like this one is 2000, right? So it was still in the bank. I think I did this one at the bank actually in there. The Softimage had a nice refraction already. It was kind of cool, this one was also in the bank. There was a guy who worked in there. He was passionate about this TV series, and he showed me like some pictures, and he got like lots of different angles and everything. And I was like, oh, that's a cool reference. So I decided to kind of like try some hard surface. And so I did this one, it's 2002. Then this one here was an interesting one. So this is when everything kind of started for me. You see, like this is my first like full body model, right? Like organic and stuff. And I developed this character for a short movie that I never finished. And the whole story behind this is that I had like 3 colleagues in the bank who are artists as well. and they decided to create like a short movie. So they had a short movie that was kind of cool, and so I helped them to do the whole thing. I mean, like I was doing like most of the animation, did all the modeling and everything, but it was not organic. It was all like kind of like paper, it was like kind of like Paper Mario style, right? Like just like flat characters and everything. And that short movie actually ended up winning a lot of the major competitions in Brazil, including the Anima Mundi, which is one of the biggest competitions, right? And it's a shame I don't have my trophy here. It's actually at ILM, and now I don't have access to go to ILM, but it's there. But we won that, and the interesting thing is that it's the biggest animation festival in Latin America. And normally Pixar actually submits their work, and normally Pixar wins everything with their short movies, right? But that specific year, Pixar didn't send their submission, and we sent, and it was like we had no idea what would happen, and we ended up like winning in Rio, in São Paulo, and normally like the Brazilian short movies would just win like local, kind of like best animation in Brazil or something like that, But that year we actually won the major, the big prize, It's like, so basically like we got like the major prize, which is normally like Pixar that wins. And it was kind of funny because it's just like those four guys from a bank, It's like we did the short movie. And the cool thing about that is that obviously we got a lot of recognition for the work done and everything. But I kind of like felt left a little bit behind because the directors, both of them my friends still today, they kind of like, they started to kind of like go to all those interviews and everything, and they would rarely invite me to anything. So they would just like be in the front, it's like of everything, and just like take like the full credit for everything, right? And sometimes mention me and I got like a hurt with that, It's like I got kind of pissed at them back in the day. And then the first thing that I thought, it was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to prove a point that I was actually a big force behind this whole thing because of the visual and everything that I helped to develop. So I'm going to start my own short movie. So kind of like almost like a little sweet revenge, So the intention was to create like something that first I didn't know how to create because I had to learn the whole process, right? So this project was about learning lighting, texturing, modeling, everything, animation, rigging, and everything. And then the intention was to create a short movie with 4 characters. And then actually 3 characters and a cat. So yeah, 4 characters. And actually, it is 4 characters plus a cat. But I never finished, What happened is that I started posting images like this. Back in the day, it was like CG Talk. And I started getting front pages, It's like I was like clearly showing that this is a work in progress. My intention is to make a short movie. And then, the first thing that was interesting is that I shared the same images in a Brazilian forum, which was the biggest forum back in the day. It was called 3D Online. And basically like people didn't quite like the work, It's like they kind of like started like kind of a little bit of they had a little bit of a group that was kind of closed group. So I think like they are not very fan of any outsiders, And I came like from out of nowhere and just posted in there, and they started like saying like, oh, this is wrong, blah blah blah, the textures are bad and blah blah blah. So lots of criticism, And I was like so bummed because it was the first time I was sharing this kind of stuff. And then I posted at CG Talk, and then within a few hours I got front page at CG Talk, which had like 400,000 people registered or something like that. So I started getting like visibility, I was like, and then after this I posted like an animation I did for the plumber, which was like a black guy who is the main character actually in the movie, and it was just like a test of his head bouncing around and interacting with a little object. And I ended up like getting like job offers, It's like I got the job offer from not job offer, but the job interview with Blizzard. Blizzard was the first one who contacted me actually, and it was a disaster because I didn't speak English back in the day, and my friend who worked with me, was like she barely spoke English, so it was a disaster. So it didn't quite work out. And then there's another offer from Italy. And then there's another one that came from the director of a movie that was about to be made that was called Barnyard. It was released. Some of you might know the movie. It's kind of like it's a bunch of like talking cows, and then all the male cows have others. So it's a very kind of fucked up kind of thing. And the director was Steve Oldkirk, who directs the Kung Pao series, and all the thumb wars, thumb thanics, and all those little thumbs with faces. Very funny guy. And he contacted me directly, So this was like in 2004 when I actually moved to the United States. And that was my first job. And I mentioned like by email, because by this time I was posting a CG talk and getting better with my English. I was like interacting with people all the time, but without speaking English, just like written. But then when I mentioned to him by email, I was like, I don't speak English. I was like, I just I can write, but And he said like, no, it's totally cool. I mean, we can communicate. If you can email each other, for me, it's good. And then I asked him like, how does that work? I was like, I'm here in Brazil. I'm still working in a company here. I had like I was taking a break from the bank, actually working in a small company. And he said, no, don't worry about it. We're gonna provide you with the visa and everything. And I was like, cool. So I was waiting for about like 3 months, 3 or 4 months. They got the visa, so I moved to the United States. Super difficult. I didn't speak the language. It's like even ordering a pizza would be hard. And then, but within like probably like 6 months, I was able to actually communicate pretty okay with everybody. Limited, vocabulary, obviously, but yeah. So everything started kind of there. But during this time, when I first got in there, actually right before I moved to the United States, I was like, okay, so I have to take this break now while I'm waiting for my visa. So there's this challenge happening, which was this challenge here that was called the Machine Flash Challenge. And again, like I had no idea how to create those things. I just like set my mind to, let me try to do this, right? Because I already had some experience like modeling this kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, so that's the next step. So I started to do this. And the concept was kind of weird, it's like, because like you had to find a way to connect machine and flash. And then I thought about this being, which is basically like it's almost like her baby, right? It's kind of like she's kind of like a pregnant robot, but her belly is actually connected to his brain. So there's this aspect of kind of domination in there. And also the fact that he's trying to get her out of his back, but they're completely interdependent. So if he does that, both beings basically die. So like that was my concept, I was like, and I was writing about it, and I was just like posting all this step by step and my progress with textures and everything. And I ended up like winning the first prize. And then when I won, I got like a nice workstation. It was like $10,000 in software and hardware. And then when I got the job, United States, then they didn't have to send the computer to Brazil. They could just deliver at my home here, United States. And then that's what happened. So when I first I already got like a very nice machine to start working on my own stuff. And then while I was at Cafe FX, I was like, okay, I'm using ZBrush a lot because this was the first time I used ZBrush in anything, right? Like this character here. And then was mostly poly model, but then there's a little bit of ZBrush starting to work in there as well. But then this one here, I took as a challenge to myself, like, let's do everything in ZBrush. So all the models, all the renders, everything is done in ZBrush, right? The plants, everything is 100% model in render in ZBrush. Back in the day, you didn't have like multiple subtools. It's just like one single tool. And the way you would work, you would just basically like, you would have to model one of the characters, and then you would place a marker. You would press M, place a marker, and that would create a memory of the position of that character. So you would model the next one, blah, blah, blah. And then you would assemble the scene after, it's like you would click and assemble the scene like element by element. And then kind of like in 2.5D at that point, it's like kind of like just moving stuff around. So it's kind of like challenging, but I managed to do it. And I ended up like winning again the whole challenge, competing with people doing actual 3D back in the day. So I got again like a nice prize. It was another $10,000, but it was kind of like a laptop. They're about to give me another workstation. I asked for a laptop instead, and that software and stuff was pretty cool. And then like during that time, I started posting a lot at ZBrush Central. So I had some series in there. I did the Superman. I did like my first version of the Rick Baker portrait. And then there's this time here that they are testing ZBrush version 3.0, because 2.0 was very limited, didn't have a lot of stuff, but 3.0 was really cool, So around this time, I started to actually really get into like more organic modeling. It's like I was kind of like fascinated with like with the old people, right? Like I have this fascination because, like I mentioned before, my family, they all died very young, So, even this piece here, I normally tell the story about it, which is basically like it's this old man holding this dead baby. And there's a lot of symbolism in here, It's like there is a leaf right here floating in the river. There's another one that's a single leaf, like right above his head. And basically the scene here represents like his last breath, you know. It's like it's him seeing himself as a baby and then recounting all his steps during his life, right? And then the last leaf in the tree represents like his last breath. And then the leaf right here in the river represents like the last breath of this baby, who is actually himself. And then basically like when that leaf, in my mind, right, when that leaf fell in the river, they both would get together, and basically like life and death kind of meeting there. And the river actually, when I sculpted it, it was modeled in a way that supposed to be running against the current. So it would have like the way that splashes against these rocks in here is against the current, to show like the reverse order of things, kind of like someone old holding someone, you know, young, instead of the opposite, like someone dead young, right, instead of the opposite. And then the tree like barely touching the river at that point, you know, it's like, so just like little, you know, it's like almost like not touching anymore, just like the last little breath, you know. So kind of like a very conceptual kind of thing, like very heartfelt because of like the history of my father and my mom, you know, it's like they died very young and stuff. And then all this stuff for fun, you know, it's like trying to capture those things, like different materials, you know, it's like rubber and all that stuff, you know, it's like trying to capture this sagginess in the skin. I didn't have a lot of reference, so I would just like try to imagine things, you know, it's like and figured it out. Like I would try to do like an old person first, and then move to a fat person, you know, it's like, and then a skinny person, and keep like flip flopping between different characters. This one I did for a mini challenge at CG Talk that was like for old people. And there's a bunch of my current friends on Instagram who participated on that one. Magdalena Dadella, she was there as well. It's like she's very good modeler. And this is like, was very fun, you know. And there's another mini challenge that was 2008, and it was about Stan Winston. He just passed away. And then the intention was to actually model something related to him. And I ended up like, my intention was to just model this one, which is like, it's a version from the Sebastian Kruger, who is an excellent caricature guy. He's a painter. But his version actually was half of the face was a caricature and the other half was a monster. But then I just like, I'm not going to model the monster part, otherwise it's going to be a total ripoff. I'm just going to model a 3D version of the Stan Winston part of it, right? So I modeled this one, but then meanwhile, there's an artist, as you probably know him, like Alex Oliver, who's excellent, like a clay sculptor and 3D modeler as well. And he entered the competition, man. And Alex, he's like obsessed. So he cranked like probably like 3 or 4 models in that competition. And I was like, oh man, I have to do something because otherwise I'm not going to win this. And it got super competitive, you know? And I was like, okay, so since you're going to be doing those models, and he didn't know how to texture or anything, I was like, you know what? I'm going to model 4 characters and I'm going to texture every single one of them. So I ended up like doing Stan, and then the pumpkin head, and then the T-Rex, and also the Terminator, right? Like the head. So I ended up like winning 5 out of 6 prizes, and then he won one of them, which was basically like best group of characters together, because he had like a kind of like he modeled with all the characters put together in the same scene. But I ended up like winning the other one. So we always have this kind of like friendly competition from that point on, you know. But he is a beast, man. Alex is really, really good, and he's a great guy too. And then 2009, I needed just some like, you know, this one is from Carlos Huante, the concept. I used to work with him at ILM. So I asked permission, you know, it's like to, you know, can I model it? And then he said yes. So I kind of did this one. He liked it back in the day. And this one was kind of like, I was starting to model like The Bride and Frankenstein back in the day. So I kind of stopped around there. And then something happened around this time here, which is the part 2 of the series. So my wife got pregnant, and then we were expecting our first son. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, so first thing, we're gonna need some money, because now she's pregnant. We're gonna need to pay for the birth and all that stuff. You know, it's like the plan was to do like a home birth. And then I was like, okay, since I have this history of winning those challenges, you know, it's like I got lucky on them. If I win this challenge, the B movie challenge was called, instead of like getting another computer, I can sell the computer, get that money, and help out with the family stuff. So that was the intention. I entered this challenge to kind of like try to win something. And I ended up like winning for best models, but I didn't win like the main prize like in the other ones. It still was a good chunk of money, but the thing is like the prizes are all sucky. It's like stuff that I never gonna use in my life, like some softwares that I never wanted to use in my life. And it ended up like being a waste, you know. But it was cool for the experience of being able to model those characters. It was a very fun challenge. It's like a clay, one of my rare clay sculptures in here that I was doing back in the day too. But then here, then I started actually, okay, now we have a 2-year-old kid, right? So like I need to actually go back to my CG stuff for a little bit. So I took this one as a challenge to, you know, model all those wrinkles again, like old people, right? And this is based on a painting from a great painter called James Bama. So I did that one. And then 2015, what happened is that I went to TAGU, which is that festival that happens, right? Like that conference. And I went to Portugal. And then I was there and then met all those amazing artists. And I went to a lot of talks and I saw very inspiring stuff, you know. I was like, and that kind of like put the fire under my butt again. Like I was already obviously working at ILM since a long time, since 2008, I got to ILM. But then this put like a fire on my butt to kind of like, you have to actually go back and do more work, you know, because you saw like between 2010 in here, took 2 years for me to get here, and then another 3 years to get here. So basically like 5 years of doing no CG, basically like just doing work around the house, building furniture, doing all kinds of stuff, you know. And then here I was like, you know what? I need to do something about it. So it was kind of like that little spark. So I started doing this project in here with the monkey and the girl. I never finished them. There's like some recurrent thing about like a monkey and a girl, right? What do you think? It's like there's some perversion in there. The monkey is probably the Brazilian in me, right? And then what it was like 2017. So 2 years later, I took another break in 2016. It was hard to find the time, you know, like with the family life and everything. I was like decided to actually start doing more personal work. So I set myself a couple of goals. I set myself like, okay, I'm gonna take one night to do a sketch, and it doesn't need to be texture or anything. It's gonna just like look like clay. So I set my little shader for clay and everything. And then one day to do a fast sketch, and then the next night I'm gonna do, basically like it would be 2 nights, right? So at night after work, I would do one sketch, and then the next night I would refine it. So this is basically like 2 nights of sketches, all of them. And then the intention was to actually 3D print them. I was excited. I got my 3D printer at that point, you know. And then so I posted this one. I remember like asking which one you prefer, because that way I could like 3D print and maybe some sell some copies or something, you know. Again, like to help the family and everything. And it was pretty cool, you know. It's like because I was able to do like 9 of them, so it took me like half a month to do this, right? It was like 18 days. But that was very fun. And then I start this one here, which is like I start sculpting just her face first. And then the intention was to actually learn more about the pores and all the stuff that you see me doing nowadays. It started with this character here. Let's see if I have access to her here so I can show you very quickly. Little person here. Let's see. I found it the other day. I hope I can find it here easily. I don't want to torture you guys, but let's see. I found like a bunch of pictures of the skin detail that I did for her, which was very cool to see. I think I have it, the gallery right here. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna find it eventually, but let's see if I can try here, perhaps. Photos, and then let's go to one of those conferences. Let's see. Workshops, and then let's try the unhide one. And then the portfolio, personal work. Let's see if she's here somewhere. Yeah, so basically, I don't have like the ZBrush stuff, but I have this. So I started doing this kind of stuff, you know. It's like trying to, that's the eye that you guys were asking yesterday, that I have that different type of iris, right? So I started by doing this, you know. It's like in everything here, all those pores are all hand sculpted. The same way that we are doing right now, all the detail actually was hand sculpted, right? So this was the first time that I was kind of like trying to push like a little bit more realistic, other than my old lady back in the day, right? But this one here was kind of like trying to push it a little bit forward. And yeah, those ones back in there. But that's kind of like the way that I started right there. And then from that point, then I started like, okay, so I started the portrait of Dick Smith. uh, and then which was very cool. Like I was actually not being part of those communities for a long time, and then someone actually asked me to post at ZBrush Central. I posted, and then I ended up getting like the work of the year for the ZBrush annual celebration that they have. So it's pretty cool. I got a little trophy that's like solid metal, it's super heavy. And then I did this Rick Baker next because they are very connected, right? Like Rick Baker, 6 times Oscar winner. He was actually a student of Dick Smith, so that's basically his master, you know. And they kind of lived together for a little bit. He was actually in his house. And then, you know, this one here, kind of like a test with clay renders and stuff. This was way before this new, you know, wave of clay renders right now, right? So 2018. Now it seems like everything is clay. You know, there's those packages released, someone is selling. And then went to the Stan Winston one, right? That kind of like was a little bit of a push from the previous ones. And here's always like trying to push one step forward. And then more fun stuff like this. You know, it's like my plan is to actually 3D print it. There's a company actually start carving for me in wood, but then they stopped, you know, with the pandemic and everything. Some space like to have some fun like this. Back to Frankenstein, always a challenge to model the Frankenstein monster because the subtleties in the face, you know. And then what happened this year, basically, like that one last year was like this one, another 2 characters for the classes, and then those ones are all like this year, right? So that was like January right here, and that was March, this was April, and this is with you guys. So kind of like, you know, we're slowly trying to build like a portfolio more towards portraits now. But you never know what's gonna happen, you know. It's like sometimes you just feel like, okay, I have to go back to anatomy, you know. It's like and go back and do more of the fun stuff like full body characters, you know, like maybe like finish this little person, you know, which is kind of cool. Like the proportions of little people always like intrigue me, you know. The intention is to make her into kind of like a little princess. But yeah, so that's kind of like part of my little story in there. And this is actually the short movie, and this was like, bear in mind, was done in 2003. Okay, was completely rigged using a combination of joints and then blend shapes mixed with it, and always with the set-driven keys. And then basically like that way you can actually connect to a spline, and you can move the spline around, and that's going to drive like a bunch of different things at the same time. Very similar to what we do today, you know. But this was 2003. It was kind of like one of the first people kind of like using that kind of technique. And then I did this animation here basically like in a single day, because it was so easy. It was like, instead of like having to put a bunch of keyframes for different like joints and everything, or blend shapes, was just a few levers I had to pull to create the expressions, you know. So I was able to pull that off like very, very fast. Like one day I rendered it, posted CGTalk, got the front page, and that's the one that actually got me my first job in the United States in 2004 from for this animation movie. Of course, like bear in mind that it's kind of sucky, but for that time it was kind of cool. So check this out. So that's like it's a shame. Like I can post this animation actually for you guys today with the sound, because I don't think you guys can hear the sound, right? It's like there's a yeah, it's very fun. The thing is, like, it's from someone who never did a lot of animation. You know, it's like I had done some 2D animation like for the TV commercials, but this was the first time I was actually animating in 3D, and it's just like shows that, like, you know, it's like if you put some time and focus on something, you know, it's like you can create something kind of cool. And that's what I think about those classes, you know. It's like uh going back now to the classes after this whole thing here. uh it's always like inspiring when I look, for example, like my Instagram. I try to be very selective, like in terms of not adding like any celebrities or it's like no distractions. It's basically 100% art. Everything I have on Instagram. Enough with distractions on Facebook, right? But it's just art. And then so every time in the morning I open my eyes, first thing I do, I go to Instagram, open Instagram, and then I start like going through it, and I see so many like awesome work, and kind of like just like the way that I felt that day, kind of like when I went to THU, seeing all the presentations from all the people, it kind of puts that fire in you. So I get inspired like every day, it's like looking at stuff and then challenging myself a little bit more. It's like there's no way we can ever finish a model, right? Like everything is just abandoned because there is no comparison to the complexity of natural forms, right? Like the complexity of a human anatomy, for example. You can study it for your entire life, or maybe for 3 or 5 lives, and you're not going to learn everything about all the subtleties and everything, all the structures, right? What we try to do here is like capture the soul, which means like capturing the facial expression that actually can communicate, people can empathize with it, having a nice shader for the eyes, a nice positioning for the eyes, something that can really look alive to be able to connect, It's like especially people like most of us, we're pretty much introverts, and doesn't show when you're online, because online everybody's brave, right? Like we post a lot, we laugh a lot together and everything. But when we are alone, we are kind of like introvert. We're kind of like a little bit inside of ourselves. And so when you do something like this, basically like I'm working at late at night, it's like 3 a.m, and I'm kind of like trying to be concerned about, it's like if the things are looking correct first, they're looking like convincing, but at the same time, what kind of impression this character is going to cause when I release it next morning, for example, right? So what kind of like detail I can add in here that's actually going to add a little bit extra life to him, and then so people can connect with this guy, even though it's like it's a bunch of polygons, right? There's no life per se, right? It's just like zeros and ones. It's just like a bunch of random shit in the screen. But then you're trying to organize this stuff into something that people can connect to. Just like you have a guitar in there, and if you just like strum the chords, I mean, like nothing good's gonna come out unless you start organizing those things into beautiful sounds, right? Or something that people can connect to. And that's basically our job in here, is to organize this mess and make sure that there is life in there. I have this philosophy that every time you put yourself into the work, other people can see that. There is no way to fake it. You can tell when someone is actually being honest about something, or when someone is actually just doing something for the sake of it, just to look cool or something like that. I try to be very honest with my work. I try to actually model the people that actually somehow inspired me, either because of the things they said. In this case here, I was more fascinated by the quality of the skin and the sculptural aspects of this character. So that's the biggest challenge for me. But when I watched his talk at TED Talk, it was very fascinating as well. It's like to see him in movement and the way that he thinks about things. Now he passed away obviously a couple of years ago, but it's like a special person. And there's nothing I can ask for like then it's like someone who's actually a good person as my subject for modeling. That's why I normally I don't model, for example, like I try to avoid as much as I can, like modeling celebrities, for example. I don't think they're the smartest people out there, and they are basically like professional liars, right? So they basically just like a bunch of professions in there. People actually they're professional liars. They are paid to actually emulate emotions, right? And sometimes they have to dig deep. Obviously, the good actors, right? They dig deep, and then they can actually find something in their own lives that actually can provoke that emotion, and then transmit that as if it was something real. So it kind of like you believe the person, right? But my philosophy is this, it's like I model the people I actually admire. It can be like I said, a sculptural challenge, but I'm so glad he is like he's a good person. He was a good person, because I would not give platform to someone who is a, you know, a big giant douche, you know, and then all of a sudden like spending hours and hours looking at this person, and then I'm not going to be proud at the end, you know. It's like, yeah, unless it's a very cool face. I mean, it's something that really intrigues me. For example, like I look at the UFC fighters sometimes, and there are guys like the Bigfoot Silva, you know. It's like he has like acromegaly, right? So he has this gigantic face and hands and foot, and he's just structurally, his face is so appealing, you know. And for example, it's something that I wouldn't mind modeling, but when it comes like to other characters, I mean, like I try to be, you know, it's like try to model people I actually respect as human beings, you know, instead of like just like randomly looking for the easy clicks. um, so when I start this class here, my intention is to actually look for those details, right? Like for that bring this guy to life. I got like to that point that I have that little render that's not, you know, it's just like not the finished image, but it has some of that life that I was expecting to give him. But obviously yesterday we tweaked teeth, we started to eliminate all those things, right? So now it's going to be like iterations, you know. In between those renders, I end up like normally picking like some favorite ones, you know, like something that, you know, it's like I see as something that's going to be more interesting, that I myself feel more connected to. And then if the lighting doesn't quite work, in this case here, I'm not like a huge fan of the lighting here. And also this one is pointing to a lot of problems with the lack of detail in the skin, you know. It's like the folds are still a little rough and everything, but they actually inform, you know, it's like inform what I need to do next. So today in the afternoon after work, I started actually adding more of this finer detail. You can see right here, like there are more wrinkles now. It's more broken up. I started introducing some smaller ones in here. I start adding more of this stretchy kind of quality to the like very thin skin around there. I found a very cool reference that shows more of the zygomatic muscle in here. You know, it's like on the cheeks, right? So I can show you the reference. Actually, it was pretty cool, man. I was looking for images of like high resolution of him, and then I found one that's not super high res, but it's definitely better than what I had before. And this one can inform a lot more stuff. Let's see, references. Yeah, so there's one here. This one. Look how cool this one is. It shows a lot, you know. It's like how evident those muscles are right there. It wasn't that much before. In this case here, his teeth, you know, how long they are as well, and very yellow. So I mean, like there's a lot I can borrow from this one, but at the same time, there's a difference of like 4 years of age between this one and this one, right? So this one here, he was like 4 years younger, which for someone of this condition, you know, it's like he was probably like, I don't know, equivalent to what, like 15 years. I don't know, man. It's like it goes very fast for them, you know. But you can see like the little hair in the back in there. I think like at this point here, it didn't have all of that hair anymore. But this guy here had a little bit of hair. See, like tiny little bits here and there. So, you know, it's like always like in the spirit of getting more information for the character, you know. It's like that's why I like to model like from this people that I only have reference like in low resolution normally, because every time I find something like this is a little treasure, you know. It's like, okay, now this informs me a lot more stuff here I wasn't seeing before. This tiny micro wrinkles in here, you know, secondary stuff. So like I mentioned before, I mean, like every time you look at the character, it's almost like you're looking like to model a full creature in each one of those elements, you know. It's like if you look at this cheek in here, this area, like how much information you find in here, you know. It's like you can see the whole mechanics in here, because again, it's very like it doesn't have a lot of fat anymore, right? Like underneath his skin, so you can see like the tendons and the muscles being pulled, you know. It's like you can see like the cables in here pulling everything, right? So you can see like very nice right there, right? And all of this informs, you know, it's like it adds a little bit more to your internal library of knowledge about this stuff, you know. Also the rhythm, you know, it's like the type of stuff that you have to look for in the sculpture. You see there's a line here that's very, very round, and then it becomes almost square in reverse in here. And then right around this point, it becomes a square again. So you think sometimes, you know, it's like you're not going to see that in a organic form, but you're gonna find angles. It's like you look at an arm, for example, the silhouette of an arm, you're gonna see like some counter silhouette points. It's like, for example, like a little straight line and followed by a curvature, and then there's an offset. There's always like diagonals. For example, like the belly of the muscle is not like a Popeye kind of or a Michelin Man kind of thing, right? It's like a completely round. If there is always an offset, things are a little bit offset. So there's so much to be informed around this area. So just looking around here, even before starting to model, it's just like tripping on it. It's like in trying to imagine like you were actually touching that, because you have that memory. You touched the human face before, much. I'm almost completely sure you did, and you probably touched like some thin skin as well, like either like it's like when I had my kids, I mean like tiny little bites on their toes was delicious, right? Because those toes are so soft. The skin is so soft. And then I can imagine that type of texture in here, it's like this very thin skin. So I can imagine myself touching that skin. So when you start imagining yourself interacting with the physical object, then you can actually realize, it's like how thin it has to be. So it's kind of like first you borrow that experience like into your brain, kind of like trying to recount how that felt when you touch something similar. It can be like let's say like an Egyptian cat, right, or something, or a little mouse, whatever. And you felt that texture of this very thin skin, and then all of a sudden, it's like you're kind of like, okay, when I model, I have to try to represent that experience, that the skin has to be, thin, and you have to feel like it's thin. And if it's thin, then the subsurface scattering is going to penetrate pretty well in there as well, right? So all those things, like you start with the physical, like the feeling of it. It's like almost like you have to feel the object, or in this case here, the creature or the human as a physical entity. Something that you're going to try to represent. When you start internalizing that, then you start respecting more the character, because you're really trying to give life to someone, and then it becomes more honest in a way. It's like it becomes like less robotic. So let's say like you're not trying to assemble a robot by adding a little piece here, for example, the eye, right? And then you're adding another piece, like a Lego kind of like thing, right? You're just like assembling by putting pieces and trying to nail each one of them. No, you're actually feeling the character as a living being, and then you're trying to kind of like borrow some of that for your work. So if you start from that point, that you actually paying an homage to a human being, right? Like you're actually trying to represent someone who is alive, then I think like it becomes more honest. It's like you really start like paying more attention to what makes the face look like this. It's like why those things are happening. What's the motivation for this smile, for example? It's like what's causing the smile to happen. Then you're gonna look, for example, at the anatomy books, right? And you're gonna see like what muscles are involved in a smile, for example, right? That book that I mentioned to you guys, I have here on my side. I check it out from time to time. The Anatomy for Facial Expression by all these Zarins, right? You can order from Amazon. I'm not associated with them in any shape or form, but it's an amazing book, and it's in your recommendations list before the first lesson in there. So very important, it's like to just like out of curiosity, it's like why do I have those shapes like this? Also, the challenge with him is that, for example, you look at her and you see, for example, like the way that the structure of the eyelids is, right? So she has the eyelids in there, but then because of the smile, she's doing basically like it's the same facial expression, right? But she has quite a bit of like fat tissue underneath the cheeks right here, right? And then basically like this is motivating everything to go up. So it causes this tension in here and a compression. So it compresses and creates this lower eyelid to kind of like it builds volume, right? Like because it's being compressed in there. Just try to imagine like a rubber ball that you just press, right? You kind of like puffs out. So that's like puffing out right there. And then that's creating this shape that's based like the base is almost like a straight line. And then the top area is like round, right? So that's kind of like you can tell someone is smiling even when you cover the mouth just by the way you see the eyes. So we are very smart about that. It's like we are specialists in facial expressions, right? Since we are born, basically. But the whole thing here is interesting is that if I put her in a neutral position, you're probably going to see her eyelids with that offset that I normally talk to you about. You know, it's like you put someone in profile, the top eyelid is a little bit more forward than the bottom eyelid in a neutral position, right? Based on the position of the eyeball within the cavity there and everything. But in his case here, you see like it's a different kind of thing. The way I see this character in here is almost like the dominant form is not the upper one, but rather the lower part, you know? He has this interesting tension that it pulls everything to the corner like that. So I started to introduce some of that in my character. I'm trying to reverse a little bit that relationship, you know, it's like trying to bring this at least to the same level, you know, and get kind of like at the same level in there. But that's the thing, you know, it's like a character like this forces me to see things a little differently and be more curious about the forms themselves, things that are normally expected. For example, if I close my eyes, right, I can kind of see a human face, and I have my own set of internal rules that are gonna, you know, try to represent if I'm sketching something from memory, for example, right? And I'm gonna try to pay attention to those relationships I just mentioned, but like top eyelid is gonna be forward and stuff. But then when I look at something real, just unusual, right? It's real, but it's unusual. It's a very rare disease. I mean, like affects like 300 people in the whole world, right? I have to force myself to see the forms in a different way, but at the same time try to understand why they are that way, right? Like why those muscles are so visible, why his cranium is so developed, you know, all this stuff. And then when you start looking at that, then you're gonna have to realize that obviously, like it's a human being. It's just like a human being with a different type of condition. But certain things, for example, like the way that his cranium was when he was born, it was a perfectly normal cranium. He just developed in an unusual way, right? So we're gonna have to respect like the marks, you know, it's like where the pieces, like all the bones that are attached in the head, they're gonna be in the same spot. It's just like deformed, right? Basically. So we're gonna have the same kind of structure, but with a very much exaggerated forms in certain areas and underdeveloped in others, right? Like for example, like her brow ridge in here, very developed. In him is a very, very subtle line, right? With the eyes a little deeper and everything. So yeah, learning how to see the form, it's something that takes many years, you know. It's like I would say, but at the same time, when you have someone telling you that this is an important thing, you know, that kind of like it tells you that maybe you should focus a little bit more on that, you know. It's like really, that's kind of like what I recommend to you guys is really try to see things, you know. It's like when you look at something, especially if you're trying to go for likeness is going to be about the distances, right? So you're going to have like the eyes here, so the size of the eye in relation to the nose. So you're going to kind of like draw a triangle between those lines in here to get kind of like the proportion, right? And then you're going to have like, you know, it's like in this case here, a neutral mouth, you know, you're going to have probably like the corner of it close to the center of the eye in here. And then the little corner in here is going to be probably closer to the corner of the nose, right? But when you start seeing someone like him, I mean, like there's a facial expression involved and everything, you have to actually start bending all those things, right? Like it's to create the forms again. And everything it's much more complex than you can ever imagine, you know? It's like every time I see like a brand new face, for example, this one, I never sculpted her before. That's how I feel about all the work that you guys send me to do, like, you know, reviews and stuff. To me, it's completely alien concept. I never did that face before. I know what a mouth is, what a nose is, but, you know, all those elements separately. But proportion-wise, there's nobody in the world that looks like her, right? Maybe like a you know, identical twin. But otherwise, it's going to be like hard to find someone exactly like her, right? And but the thing is, like when I see her, I don't see a lot in terms of structure. It's kind of blurry to me. So I'm gonna see the nose position, the mouth. There's a smile. I see there's some, you know, wrinkles in there and everything. And then when I sketch her, I want to try to capture those main elements, right? Like just the squinting here with the smile and all this stuff. But then as soon as you have that done, you start getting deeper and deeper into the character, right? And then all of a sudden you start paying attention to everything that's involved in each one of those elements, you know? And then you're gonna find like how rich everything is. And the thing is, like, you can work in the same model like for an entire year if you want, or 2 years or whatever, you know, and you might not be able to actually nail the likeness exactly, right? Because the human form is way too complex. At the same time, you can take that as a frustration and just say like, oh man, that's gonna be like, again, I'm not even gonna try to do this anymore because it's too much. It's just too much, and there's no way I can nail that, right? Or you can take it as an opportunity to actually, okay, maybe it's a limitation I have. Maybe I cannot nail it, but what about like the gigantic amount of opportunity I have to introduce my own thing into this character, right? And that's basically what my trip is with those characters. You know, it's like it's capture the likeness as much as possible, right? Like, and by that I mean it's not even like a nail the proportions or anything. It's like get the proportions as much as I can, obviously, but then I capture the soul of the character. It's like the facial expression, you know, it's like the intensity in the eyes, whatever it is, and then really go to town with detail and everything. You know, it's like the secondary and tertiary forms the way I see fitting. You know, just by using kind of like averages and using references from other sources, and just like learning how to emulate, for example, the structures of the skin, right? Like at least like a good impression of it. And then once you have like a softwares like we have nowadays with the beautiful render engines with like a very precise subsurface scattering, you just plug it in there and all of a sudden you're rendering things and it actually looks like skin. It's like, oh man, now I'm in the ballpark, right? Like now I'm in a position of creating life or emulating life in the computer. But behind all of this is just like this gigantic sense of possibility that you have when you're sculpting something new, and also the accomplishment, right? Like after you sculpt everything by hand, you put all the pores in there, and then you come with a different layer of detail, and then you put like some, it's like more variation and some pimples, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you have a complete character. And then you can post online, it's like, and people go like, oh, how you do that? It's like, did you use like texture XYZ is the first question, right? It's like, no, I just model everything by hand. It's like, what? No, kidding, obviously, but it's like, it's still a little surprising for people sometimes, when they don't know how you created it. They just assume you're just using everything ready-made, and it's not like a matter of pride, it's like, it's a matter of like really being curious as an artist and learning different things, which you can use for, different things in your life. I mean, like if you're learning how to observe the form and look for details that maybe a lot of people out there don't see, right? If you are able to capture this type of detail that adds more life that other people are not seeing, you're kind of like one step above, right? Like kind of like you're in a better position than someone else who's just like capturing the basic impression of the character, but without going deeper into how those expressions are being generated, So yeah, I encourage you guys to just like go as far as you can and as far as your time permits, obviously. One thing that I mentioned in the past, like in some of my conferences, is that nobody remembers like mediocre work, right? So for example, like if you create a lot of work, like you create like a new sketch, like the biggest one is like Lunch Crunch, right? Lunch Crunch, it's like 10 minutes work. It was like, yeah, looks like shit. No, so basically like a few people are gonna remember, it's like, unless like you're a freaking prodigy, right? Like in 15 minutes, half an hour, you create something that's completely very expressive, right? Like it doesn't need to be perfect, but it's very expressive. Then it's cool. People are gonna probably remember that. But for the most part, people are gonna remember cool work. It's like it's stuff that it doesn't matter how long you take to do, basically, right? We are like a few people who actually post work in progress stuff. I like posting work in progress because it shows that you make many errors. It's like many mistakes during the production of a little piece, and you flip flop, you go back and forth. You take a route and then you abandon that route and go back to another one. But it shows that you're human, right? Like you're just like learning and trying things the best you can. It takes a lot of work to make something to look easy, right? Like that's how I feel about the work I see from other artists. It's like when I see someone who is like nailing one after the other one, all those projects, I was like, yeah, I know how that's done. the guy's spending a huge amount of time doing that. Basically, like he's dedicating, you know. Those things are not going to create themselves. The forms are not going to create themselves. You have, it's this constant struggle, you know. It's like there is no model that I ever created that was without struggle. Every single one I struggled with, sometimes many aspects of the work, right? I was happy with this one until a certain point. Then all of a sudden, yesterday I rendered, I was like, oh, I'm not happy with the skin at all. So now I'm going to have to go back into another full pass on the skin, right? And it's this constant search and everything. So I just tell you guys that there is no wasted model. You know, it's like you can actually have a model that doesn't look that great, but this is like, it's basically clay. You know, it's like it's a digital clay, and you can always move stuff around. And sometimes your model is just like one tweak away from looking completely convincing. You know, sometimes like you have everything in place, but the eyes are too low, right? And all of a sudden, like you're being under the pressures, you're not like looking too closely to your model because everything becomes a blur after some time, right? And then all of a sudden, like you kind of like, all right, so let me see now. Let's go to the lowest resolution of my character. Let's ignore all this fine detail that we put in place. Let's look at the primary forms. What's wrong here that I'm not getting the proportions correct? Oh, okay, the eyes are too close. Don't be precious, just go precious, right? Just go there and move those eyes out and do as a test, have your file saved, right? Move the eyes out, maybe a little bit up, whatever you need to do with broad strokes so you can actually feel it, you know? What I do sometimes, let me just go back here. If I'm trying to design a new character, right? Like something I'm trying to come up with, and I have like a character like this, right? Right in my face. And then I was like, okay, so what can I do here? You can just like, okay, you have this model saved. Okay, so let's go for some extreme stuff. You know, it's like you pull stuff out, right? You're just like, you know, let's, you know, how you say, like stretch. Let's stretch like the chin and see what I get. Let's pretend this character didn't exist, right? The amount of like freedom you have, like to experiment with things, you know, it's like and really try different things, like, you know, ears, whatever you need to do, right? And basically, like sometimes a little tweak like that gives you an idea. You know, it's almost like if you have like a pencil and you're drawing, you probably try different ideas and just doing the sketch here and there. And with this, with the CG is the same. You know, it's like you just pull stuff. You know, it's like in the most extreme way, and then sometimes it looks weird, and then you're gonna, you know, it's like you're just gonna go back to it, and you try to do the reverse, right? And you start seeing some interesting elements and stuff like that. You know, it's like you can start playing with those things, and then finding out those interesting shapes. So don't be too precious. That's the other lesson here. You know, it's like it's just a model. You know, it's like and like I said, you have it saved. It's not like a drawing that's just like there's no way to recover if you do something that's completely extreme. But this is kind of like the idea behind. Let's see, behind this whole thing here, right? So those guys here, all of them was a matter of like exploring those forms. You know, it's like this kind of like this like a Indian chief, like scorpion head, right? Something like that. But like really pulling the proportions and making things more exaggerated. Look how far apart and tiny the eyes are, you know. In this case here, this was the first iteration of my fawn, but nowadays it looks very different from that. And so kind of like always in the spirit of trying to redesign things, you know. It's like now it looks more like that, right? I have those actually renders that look more like wood like that. You know, so kind of like pushing those designs, you know, it's like, and I try to avoid looking at references when I'm doing this kind of exercise, because I wanted to be honest, you know, it's like, obviously, even if you're not looking to any reference, you're always going to be, you have your internal library that you assemble by looking at other references, right? So it's already there somewhere. And probably when you're building something, you definitely borrow it from someone without even knowing. But I try as much as possible, like, avoid like looking at stuff intentionally, you know. So I did that for this guy, and then there's this other guy here. Let's see if I can find, which was basically, let's try that. Let's see, on high 2019, is that the one portfolio? Yeah. So there's like stuff like that, like this, even like this Hellboy, you know, it's like I saw obviously some of the comics, right? Like to get some ideas about the face and everything, and you start tripping about the body, you know, it's like building different things here and there. But you know, it's like trying to angle things a little bit more and make things a little bit more chiseled, kind of like that style, right? And then there's this more realistic Hellboy that I started doing as well, never finished. But then there's something like oh, it's interesting. I don't have it here. I had like some demons and stuff like that I was building before as well. But maybe it's in the, let's see, my backup here. Workshops and then unhide. I think this one might have it. Yeah, something like that. So, you know, playing like, I saw this goat that has a very weird face. And I start actually sketching something like this, right? And I was like, oh, okay, I got it sketched. So maybe I can try like to add some body. So I start adding this body, which is very weird, right? There's a very like androgynous, right? There's a almost like a vagina in there. And so like playing with those things, you know, is like in receding the chest in here and adding some other stuff, but like pretty much like very loose, you know. And then after that, obviously, then you start like detailing things and all that stuff. But you know, it's like just playing with those forms. I like those explorations, but I just don't do enough, you know, especially with the classes now. But for example, like that kind of stuff, you know, it's kind of interesting, you know, it's like that. But again, I'm kind of like in this phase of just trying to do cool things that people connect to instead of like monsters and demons, you know. So I'm probably gonna go back to this when I'm in a different spot in my life. But right now, I'm not actually too happy to be dealing with those things. But yeah, eventually I'm gonna go back. But you know, again, like not looking at references, like just like trying to come up with forms, you know, and designs for things like that. You know, it's kind of like more like a graphic element more than anything. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the industry, man. Like I said before, I started this whole thing when I was like 32 years old. I got my first job. That was 2004. So sometimes I meet like in those conferences, like young people, man, super talented. It's like, it's kind of irritating actually. It's just like Adam here, right? Adam's like 20 something years old. And then those guys kicking ass already, you know? And then they are so concerned, man, like, oh, I don't know if I'm, you know, it's like I'm kind of like passing my age already, you know. It's like kind of like, oh, how old are you? It's like 23. I was like, oh, fuck you, you know. And I was like, man, I started when I was like 32, you know, professionally. Obviously, I was doing it as a hobby before, so there is no real like age, like right age to start on this. It's all a matter of like how passionate you are about something, how good you are at working as a team member, right? And then you know, if you are able to deliver things, if you're a good problem solver, it doesn't matter the age, you know. It's like I tell you that where I work, I mean, like we have like people like 60 something years old, you know. It's like still modeling, still doing things, you know. 55, 60, you know. It's like I think Sven is it's around there. I think Sven is like 60 or something, or close to 60, and he's a badass modeler, man. So we live in a different time, you know. It's like I used to tell people, for example, like you look at the past generation, like your grandma or grandpa, you know, and then what they did when they were young and all this stuff, you know. It's like it's, you know, it's not as exciting as stuff that I did as a kid, you know. It's like I was born when the video games were born. I'm a children of the 70s, right? So a child of the 70s. So video games started right there. From the get-go, I got inspired by video games. You know, it's like when I was in the 90s, when they had like all the Capcom games, you know, it's like, and all the King of the Dragons and Street Fighter and all that stuff. I was really inspired by the graphics and all that stuff. So we are a different type of old people these days. You know, I'm gonna be 50 in about 2 years, and I see myself as a cool grandpa. You know, I'm gonna be like a cool grandpa for my grandchildren probably, because I have like a collection of video game consoles. I collect them. You know, it's like I have emulators, I have all the stuff, a bunch of different consoles in there, and I introduce each one of them to my kids because I want them to be able to experience that. You know, so I think like the old people nowadays are much younger than the old people before. And then that reflects in the industry as well. You know, it's like you see older people working in this industry and is still very creative. Also, were raised like on video games and stuff, so we have like you carry this culture, this respect for the previous techniques and everything, but also like having fun with it. It's like, so we are cooler old people these days. So I would say like don't worry too much about the age, like if you're 30 or if you're 40 or whatever it is. Like, just care about like learning things, it's like, and becoming good at that, not for the sake of achieving that specific goal, but just to yourself, at first, it's like to have that pride about learning something. And then you start establishing goals. I mean, like you see, like I was moved by kind of like feeling injustice, right? Like with my friends not giving me credit or calling me for the interviews and stuff. And then kind of like that gave me like kind of like a little flame to actually produce my own thing. It's like, so you can use things that sometimes you're gonna take people down as a fuel for you to move forward. The experience I mentioned, for example, like in the first time I posted in the Brazilian forum, and all of a sudden I didn't get the respect or anything. Kind of like people just like were not nice to me, and all of a sudden I post in the biggest forum in the world and I get the front page. And then you start to realize, okay, something is not adding up here, right? Like, why did this group of people told me all those things if there's this recognition by people who actually work in the industry? It's like an interview from Blizzard or whatever it is. So there's always this thing, it's like there's always someone out there. As soon as you start like showing more of your work and getting more, it's like praises or whatever it is, someone is going to come out and is going to try to take you down. It's like every single time. It's like you can count on that, and you can choose to actually it's like let them do that to you, or you can just like do something like I did. For example, like I try to prove people wrong. So for example, if people say that I don't know how to do a certain thing, I take the time, I learn how to do it, and I start getting better at that. And eventually they're going to have to just stop saying what they're saying, but haters going to be there, man. I mean, like there are people like never met me, and they hate my guts. I see the the way they hate my guts. It's going to happen. But the thing is, like, use that as a fuel, man. Like if it's like you can always overcome this stuff. Depression is going to come and go. It's a common thing. The imposter syndrome is a real thing. I mean, like all of us suffer from that. We think like you're getting really good about something, and then you see a work that really like slaps you back to reality, and then you're like, fuck, man, I suck, and then you start thinking like, I don't deserve the things that I have. It's like, for example, like why I was a banker just like few years ago, right? I was a banker. What am I doing here? I'm teaching this group of people here. Am I good enough to teach this group of people? All those things. So we have like all those feelings of being unfit to certain things. Yeah, or even at ILM, it's like, wow, what am I doing here? It's like, but it's just like it is what it is. It's like we are all artists, and you can be 100% sure that most of us suffer from the same stuff, from the depression. It's like we are more sensitive, I would say, because we are observing, like, especially like you're doing portraits, you're observing like the human emotion, like constantly and everything. You're connected to the characters. When you're connected to the characters, you connect to the stories of the characters. And then we are normally a little bit more sensitive in a way, a bunch of snowflakes. And but it is a cool thing, it's like, but that's gonna come with a price. It's like you're probably gonna get more depressed and more anxious, or it's all kinds of stuff. But the thing is, like, just face everything as waves. It's like things come in waves every single time, and when you live long enough, you start kind of learning how to understand those waves. It's like it's almost like it's like we live in society, right? Like all those buildings and gadgets and everything, but we don't understand nature anymore. Basically, like we just leave everything in the hands of the scientists, right? And everything the guy said, and we just like, oh yeah, the science says that. But back in the day, man, I mean, like the freaking farmer who never saw like a book in his life, knew what's going to happen with the weather because, oh, I just look at the duck and duck is doing this funny thing. And then he knew that the weather is going to change in a certain way. So there's this thing about like being wise that goes beyond education, and that's what I think about, like all the things that we go through in life, like from relationship breakups, or it's like some tragic accident, or a death in our families and everything. All of that like teach us that we can get out of those things. It's like you can get deep into the hole, and then all of a sudden you climb back and you feel so good about it, and you start liking yourself again. And that's going to be constant, man. I'm 50 and I keep doing this from time to time. It's like, and sometimes I just like have to slap myself and say like, come on, look at, it's like you have a beautiful family, you have the kids, you have a beautiful wife who loves you and all this stuff. And I was like, why are you complaining about this? And then you start putting in perspective, it's like, and then you look at watch a documentary, or a talk from this guy, for example, saying of all all the struggles in his life, who never stopped him from doing what he needed to do or wanted to do. Certain things he learned how to basically understand that there are limitations, that he is different, and so are each one of us, right? We're all different. So I have my own limitations and all that stuff. So I learned how to either make peace with them, or work my ass off to actually overcome it, right? There's no way to just like, you just like sit your butt down and you expect that all the problems are going to be solved, right? You're just like, you have to go after them and slay all those dragons, right? So yeah, I would say, Ben, we are artists, we understand each other. So if you're feeling a certain way, I get emails from time to time, like from previous students. It's like, there's one sent me the other day saying like, I'm going through this that you mentioned in one of your classes. It's like, I'm feeling depressed right now and not motivated to create. And then what can I say? It's like each one has a different path and different history stories in their lives, right? But what I can say is that like, just hanging there, because it's a wave, and the same way it came in, it can go out. It's like you can be surprised by something really cool happening in your life pretty soon, or it can get even suckier. But then keep riding that wave. Don't get out of it. Just like stay in the wave and then feel it. And I think I learned this with when I actually had a separation that was very painful with ex-girlfriend I had like many years ago. And it was the only time I went to a psychologist, because I was fucked. I was like really in a dark place. And the first thing that she said was like, feel it. I was like, what? I'm already here, man. It's like, no, you have to feel it. It was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if you don't feel it deeply in your bones, that's gonna come back to haunt you in the future. Things have to be felt. So that's what I meant by like riding the wave. It's like, if you're feeling depressed or uninspired or whatever it is, hanging there, find something that you really enjoy doing. It's like, if it's music, so be it. In my case, I took like years not doing any CG work, just for like learning like how to build furniture in the house, and fixing things around the house, and being useful to my family. And then all of a sudden the wave was back. It only took me going to a conference to just like, okay, the spark is back, so I can actually re-engage. But yeah, guys, please say something. I'm just like yapping my, say something there. Let's exchange some ideas here.
It's really precious that you're talking about this, because especially like in the industry, and there are always some toxic people, and we always, I think, have to deal with them. They might be like some coworkers or some people, and it was interesting for me that you were sharing some type of similar experience, and how to deal with them and how to pass the problem. Like,
oh yeah, and you always like you prove people wrong by doing good work. That's all it is. I mean, like I use both ways, right? Like, first, for me to learn as a human being, because that's all that matters in this world for me. Is like, imagine like you're in a bus, right? That's your life. You're in a bus, and you have the choice to actually from time to time get out of the bus and live a little bit, and then experience different things. Or you can just be inside of the same bus your whole life and just watch the environment passing by the window, and you just like, they're content with whatever it is, right? So from time to time, you need to be shaken. It's like someone has to either like say something like, oh, you suck, or something, and And then all of a sudden, you know what? I'm gonna take the next stop. I'm gonna take a look at this area here because I need to breathe some different air, and you know, that's how I feel it, man. It's just like there. I agree with you. Like, and the funny thing is that I was labeled toxic by a good friend of mine that I used to be good friends with, and there was a discussion that happened on Facebook because everything becomes politicized. And all of a sudden, like people were calling me toxic, you know, because I post a lot of memes and shit like that, and because my political opinions, I'm not partisan, so basically like I don't care. I think all politicians are corrupt to the core. I think like the system was put in place like for a reason, you know. It's like it's pretty rigged, pretty much. That's what I think. So when I start talking about this shit, man, all of a sudden I'm the target of like both sides, you know, because like no, that's my religion. You know, my religion is better than their religion, you know? So yeah, so from time to time, you're gonna find people, man, they're gonna get like very, very much like entangled with their beliefs, you know? It can be actual religion or it can be politics or it can be anything, you know? And that can be something that's gonna affect you professionally as well, because it can be in an environment, you know, it's like the place where you work, all of a sudden, there's someone who sees you as a weirdo because you just like you don't buy into their ideologies, you know. And that's another thing. I mean, like I'm pretty sure in the past I went through that, you know. It's like nobody say anything because people are just hypocrites, right? But I'm pretty sure I missed like opportunities, you know, to get a better position in my job or stuff like that, just because I didn't go with the agenda, you know. But being myself is more important than all this stuff. You know, life is too short, man. You know, especially consider like my the history of my family, like in terms of health. I want to have fun. You know, it's like I want to joke about shit. You know, it's like on Facebook and just like blast any politician I want because I don't trust any of them, and whatever it is, you know. But the thing is, like, you have to be careful with that. I mean, like, especially if you are a beginner and you're trying to get to the industry, it's pretty much like the Silicon Valley culture, man. It's something that I cannot stand, you know. And here I am working right in the middle of it, you know. And so I feel like that I don't fit very well. But the thing is, like, if I'm kind of like a old horse, you know, it's like they know they can count on me. I'm not going to be all political at work. I can be very vocal on Facebook, but not at work. I'm going to be very professional in there. I'm going to be able to deliver the work and everything. So I'm kind of like a good horse that they can rely on. But I would say, like, if someone like more like a beginner trying to get a position in the industry, I'm pretty sure that your political views and all this stuff might influence, you know, your acceptance in a certain, you know, company or something like that. A lot of those companies, they want you to be part of their so-called culture, right? And then their so-called culture sometimes comes with their own little agendas, you know. And I just don't like that stuff, man. I was never the guy to be like at the boss's party just because I wanted to get close to the boss for whatever reason. I was always like the awkward dude who just like goes home and do the job, you know. And I think that didn't help me much, like professionally. Obviously, I'm still employed and all this stuff, but it helped me tremendously, becoming more and more of myself and more honest with my own work, and kind of like forcing myself to do more personal work as well, you know. Because when you're kind of like trying like to appease like a bunch of people, you know, it's like for political reasons or whatever it is, or maybe like to get like higher in your career or something like that, you kind of like start like losing yourself a little bit in that process. And then sometimes you start becoming too much of the company, you know. You become like more and more the company, and then some of these people stop like seeing their families, you know, kind of they start being in the company like 14 hours, 16 hours a day or something like that. And they get lost in that world because they have this thing like, you know, it's like, I want to become someone bigger in here because of the, you know, and all of a sudden, like, you know, either the company closes and then all of that effort goes away, or for some reason, like they restructure the company, all of a sudden, like, okay, so probably the person who actually helped this guy to get in there, all of a sudden is let go. And then this person now doesn't have the hook to stay in there, you know? So I would say, like, be good at what you do, be honest about what you do, and stand for yourself. You know, it's like, I would say, like, this is very important, but don't be stupid, right? Like, if you're a beginner, make sure that you understand the rules, because if there is something going on that there's a little agenda that people expect you to be in a certain way, you know, it's like politically or whatever it is, just be sure that you sign up for that, you know, before you enter that. Yeah.
The problem is sometimes even being silent about like the agenda that is going on.
Mm-hmm.
They would take you as you're siding against them. So it's just
Oh,
like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're
so
not with me, so you're automatically against me.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of like something that I went through like last year. So it's just interesting for me to understand that the whole kind of industry can be like that, and not just like the past couple of years I have been like in different companies. It's just like it can happen over and over again.
Yeah, exactly, man. But yeah, it's part of life, you know. It's just like, it's just a shame that everything is so politicized, man. It's just like, and so censored too, right? Like, you know, I grew up, like I said, like coming from the '70s and all this stuff, and then all this liberation and then the freedom of speech and all this stuff, you know. It's like in nowadays, man, it's just like it's the opposite. I mean, like you cannot open your mouth, and there is like a group of minions that are just gonna try to shut you down, you know. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But hopefully, people gonna, you know, eventually become sane again. That's my hope.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hey, this is a really like interesting conversation. I totally agree that it is hard to say things sometimes, but I found it interesting listening to people who join the 3D industry kind of at its inception. You talking really reminded me of listening to, I don't know if you've listened to Alex Alvarez, the guy who founded
he's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, his story sounded similar. And I find it very interesting that like a lot of you guys were, you know, the only place that you had to go to were these little 3D communities like CG Society and places like that. And, you know, my experience as someone who just joined this, I didn't even start 3D until I was a junior in college and decided I didn't want to do biology anymore. I wanted to do 3D art. And it's like such a different world with places like Artstation and Instagram now you kind of feel like, I don't know, I feel different, that I don't feel super obligated to post things just because it feels like a pebble in the sea of art. And I literally, a term that I kind of coined that I would watch people at my university do that had a decent number of people I had about 1,000 students in the 3D program, is they would do what I'd call Artstation torture.
Oh, what is that?
Where I'd go into the open lab and kids would pull open Artstation, and I'd know that they should be doing something. They should be modeling or sculpting or whatever they should be doing, and they just sit there and, you know, it'll just generate more art for you as you scroll down, you know, more and more art. And, you know, a lot of people are really good on there. And so it's this weird, like, you know, kind of disconnected community where instead of a bunch of people like posting stuff on forums and interacting.
Yeah, I miss those times, man.
You just go out and good art just like hits you in the face, and you can keep scrolling, and it's just good art as far down as you want to scroll. And so I find it very kind of troubling, but at the same time, it can be inspirational if you know how to use it right.
Yes, man. I have this concern about everything actually nowadays. You know, it's like, for example, I was using the video games as an example. To play a video game, I would have to go to the arcades, and my family, we didn't have a lot of money. You know, it's like my father died, and my mom was basically getting a pension from the bank, so she used most of the money to pay for a private school because she wanted us to get good education. But that was basically the money. We didn't have money for much more than that, you know. But going to arcade, I would have to beg my mom for like a couple of coins, you know, like to be able to play. And for that reason, I mean, like we became really good at arcades, man. Like it was me and another 3 kids, all kind of like the same kind of financial situation. And we were just like sitting there and just like watch people play and like just observe. And then when we finally put our own coin, we would go like much further than they would go because we were memorizing everything. But yeah, but the whole thing about Artstation, man, like you know, it's like I kind of like lost my train of thought here. But yeah, it's like the Artstation thing a bit in comparison to what we have nowadays with Instagram. My concern is that my kids, for example, when they play video games, they have access to a bunch of things now. They have like the Switch, and they have a bunch of games on the Switch. They don't know what the necessity is. You know, it's like to fight for a little coin to be able to play a game. So everything is taken for granted, you know. We had, back when I was a kid, maybe like 2 or 3 different TV channels, no recorder, no nothing. So basically, like if you missed the show, you're screwed, right? And then you have to wait for the next one. Now they have everything, man. And then you see them scrubbing through Netflix or something like for minutes and minutes without picking anything. So it's almost like it's a generation that's a little bit more of, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, it's like because we're just starting this generation that has everything like that. But what's going to happen like to their psyche, you know, it's like psyche when they grow up. Because like you said, you know, it's like in the past you had a sense of community, for example, like with those forums and everything. And then everything was kind of starting, you know, it's like we had like the beginning of ZBrush or whatever it was. And then you see like all these people struggling at the same time. And then someone's going to rise above the others. And then the other one's going to get inspired and they're going to try to push forward. So there's this nice competition and stuff. And nowadays, I mean, like we are like years and years into ZBrush now. So like the software is not a novelty anymore. Like the struggle with the software became kind of like it's more removed now. And then it's all about the ideas and the execution, right? Like it's basically like you get someone like 15-year-old with access to ZBrush, going to start sculpting straight away, you know, and it's probably going to get good very fast as well. And the amount of like information access that we have nowadays, I mean, it's insane, man. In terms of like free tutorials you can find for a lot of stuff, you know, there are a few guys like me, you know, it's like offering those classes now, which is cool. You know, it's like in the past, we didn't have anyone like with experience, like actually trying to show their workflows, you know, it's like kind of everything's a little bit of a secret or something. And I don't know many people actually who is doing this kind of stuff that I'm doing, you know, it's like trying to be completely honest with my process and talk about the important things, you know, it's like it makes me really happy because I see that this reflected in my students' work, you know, it's like, so it makes me really proud. And like I said, you know, it's like either you're trying to be honest and do the right thing or you're not, you know, it's like, and I'm trying to do the right thing. But yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Like the sense of community, I wish it was the same. At the same time, what's really cool is that there is a flip side of the whole thing. CG Talk was a niche kind of thing, you know, it was of course they had like 400,000 people in there. But for example, like you asked anyone in your family, oh, did you go to CG Talk? Nobody knew what it was. You know, it was just a very specific community for artists. Now, Instagram, anyone posts, grandma posts in there, anyone posts, because it's kind of like it was developed like for posting pictures of your family or whatever it was. And it starts like mixing more and more with artists of all kinds. And all of a sudden is this gigantic community, right? And then the cool thing is that you start seeing people in there that you would not expect to see, for example, at CG Talk. People doing like makeup effects, for example. Those people never went to CG Talk, unless like some of them are starting to migrate towards like CG or a little bit more curious about CG. But those guys, they would not go to CG Talk. You would see like 2D painters, 3D artists, but not like, you know, makeup effects guys. Now look at the Instagram, man. All of them are in there. Like Norman Cabrera, Steve Wang, Rick Baker, you know, all the greats, man. Still like, you know, it's like living legends in there. And you are able to interact with these people, you know, it's like you can follow them. You know, when sometimes if one of them comments on my work, man, it's like, it's the best day of my week, you know, it's like when I get a comment from Rick Baker, you know, like I got one the other day. For this specific, like this 2010 to 2020 that I posted, he posted something really cool. But yeah, man, it's just like it opened up a lot of more possibilities, you know. And then you see like some kind of mega stars now, right? Like people with like over 500,000 followers, like in our field, you know, it's like someone doing CG and getting like over 500,000 followers, you know. It's kind of like unheard of. Like back in the day, would not have that. And nowadays we have like this new era of like some superstars out there. But yeah, if you want to go that route, then it's a different kind of approach, right? It's basically like just do like a lot of pop art, and then pop art should give you a lot of views because people are going to be resharing that like crazy. But yeah, man.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Man, do you think like this kind of famous Instagram thing affected how companies hire people nowadays? I mean, like if because they're always saying like, if you don't follow the trends, if you don't follow what the most influenced that this new influencers are doing, and you're not getting into the bandwagon, you know, like, so you're not in the trend. So do you think it's a plus for your portfolio to get into this, or just your work will just be enough?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like, back in the day, I wasn't too much into doing like the pop stuff. Obviously, I did like, you know, the Young Frankenstein characters, you know, some of that stuff. But a lot of stuff was pretty authorial, you know, it was like authorial. How do you say it? I don't know. But yeah, like nowadays, man, I see this kind of trend, right? Like you said, I mean, like so there's a new movie. There's like the Joker movie, and then all of a sudden you see like 300 Jokers, right? And then the new Batman comes up, the trailer, and everybody's modeling the new Batman, you know, and then the shitty part that I don't like is actually people who sometimes are not big fans of someone, and then this someone dies, and then they make like this big homage saying like that they're biggest fans just to get followers, you know. It's kind of shitty, like you know. But anyway, I would say like in terms of companies, man, I never seen actually someone putting some kind of like priority or some kind of like, you know, because this person is modeling something that's more trendy. What I see in companies, for example, like I work, everybody I worked with, they are modelers with a lot of experience, and the supervisors came from being modelers to become supervisors. So these people are very interested in the artistic part of it, right? So for example, like they can see through the bullshit. So they can see, for example, like the anatomy, either it's good or it's not, right? Like the facial modeling that you're doing, either it's good or it's not. If you're rigging something, if it's good or if it's not. All the bells and whistles to create something that's flashy and it's kind of like current with some trend, I don't think they consider that, you know. But I'm talking about like out of my own experience working in the company I work. But I cannot promise that, for example, like in a game industry, in the game industry, you know, someone's going to be kind of looking for that kind of stuff. But I would say like your art should be stronger than any of these things, you know. It should be a strong foundation, and it should open like the doors for you without having to force you into a style, you know. Yeah. Now, obviously, those guys doing this and becoming those mega stars, they are acting very smart too, because they know that the more visibility they have, the biggest the possibility they have for someone to see their work and get like some nicer freelance work, or maybe they are trying to develop their own IP, you know. It's like in that case, you need a lot of eyes on top of your stuff. So depends of what you want to do, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's the struggle, you know. Like I don't want to be like super. Not that I don't want, but you know how hard it is to be like a superstar. Like, and if your own job just posting on Instagram is real, like just come out of nothing. But yeah, I'm saying this because I know some guys that the work is not that good. I mean, like it's good, but not the way they put on it. But they keep just receiving some job offers and some all the stuff coming, and you see like, okay, should I just go pop on this, or should I just stay with the traditional stuff, you know?
Yeah, I tell you what, man, like I kind of like I earned my grumpiness, you know, as someone who went through a lot of shit, you know. So kind of an older guy who actually, okay, so now I'm in a position that, you know, it's like I'm kind of tired of the industry in a way, you know. It's like maybe I could get out of the industry. But I would say like when I was working in the bank, there was one time that they kind of like they gave a promotion that was supposed to go to me. They gave a promotion to another guy, right? And I knew that was a political motivated thing. You know, it's like the guy was the kind of like he was the son-in-law of this military like captain or something like that, and the bank had a good relationship with that you know, army whatever branch in there. And then I know that was the motivation, because that was the talk among us. And so I got pissed, and because I speak my mind, I talked to them and I said like, dude, this is completely unfair, and I know exactly why you did it. But you saw me working waking up at 6 a.m. doing all this shit, and then when it was my turn to get the promotion, I didn't. And then I got like kind of like a red mark in my review. And then my boss called me in the corner, and he said like, you know, Chris, I totally understand what they did to you was not fair and all this stuff. But you know what? Sometimes like we have that expression in Brazil, engolir sapo, right? Yeah, we have to eat a frog from time to time, which is basically like take shit, right? You take shit. So he said, like, you have to eat this frog, man, because you are very good at what you do and everything. And I understand that it was indeed political and everything. It's out of my hands to do anything about it. But the next one probably going to be yours, because, I mean, unless you really fuck this up now, right? So I kind of like, he just, in a nice way, he said, like, just shut up. Just shut up and eat it, right? And then that's what I did. I kind of like took it to the heart, you know, because it was like, okay, I need this job. I'm basically like paying for my apartment right now, so I have to do this. So I would say like later in life, maybe it's just me, but I know a bunch of people who get bitter after, you know, going through a lot of shit during their lives. But I would say like you have to be smart about stuff, you know. It's like if it's something you have to do, for example, like it's not in your heart, but it's something that's gonna, for example, like open some doors for you to actually achieve certain things. I see no problem. You know, it's like I would not be proud about like, you know, it's like, oh, no, I should not be doing this and stuff. Maybe it's a temporary thing, you know, it's like you do that that's just for the sake of opening those doors, and then you go back to do your thing, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
That
makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice.
Chris,
Yes.
thank God that you didn't go to your boss parties, because and you went and worked instead, because I, man, your work is so inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't know that that work from 2004 was yours. I'm like 10 years younger than you. I'm born in 81. I went through a different route during this time. In 2004, I was finishing my the university degree.
Yes.
I've seen your work. I liked it. Now when you showed it, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, man.
And I think a lot of people are inspiring by your work and focusing. I mean, I'm a strong believer in the principle of substance over form. Like,
oh, totally agree. Yes.
Focusing on the work, focusing on the essence, instead focusing on strategy, on having a long-term view, instead of focusing on tactics, like to open doors, for example.
Yes.
Like 10 years ago, one of my accomplishments was that I was general manager, and I put a company on profit. The company was, I had to, my mandate was to close it down, to restructure all the people and send them home.
Oh, man.
Now looking back, those people had families. They are much better than they were supposed to. And I see that this, how to say, like in 90s, everything was much smaller. Whoever was a university, for example, had didn't have so much information, and they were filtering more. Now there is a lot of information. People are how to say, overwhelmed, let's say. But yes, it's a pool of ideas. I think this period, like these years, is something like to be built upon in the next years. I was I've seen Kong, Skyline Island 2 days ago.
Oh, you did? Did you like it?
Very impressive. Like I rewatched it actually.
Oh, nice.
And I was noticing the teeth. Like and yesterday we were talking about it, but it wasn't the time I thought to open the discussion about it. I was wondering, did you use HD, for example, in those teeth? Because they were so, how to say, hero, let's say.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
in
you
the
know what? So for Kong, what happened is that we had to split the model in by a few artists, right? So we had the Kong was modeled by me, like the body, right? So basically, like the way it worked, like the whole process was that we got concept art from different companies who tried to get the job before ILM actually did. We are competing with other companies like MPC and Double Negative, I think like a bunch of different ones. So like there's a bunch of iterations before of that, and the director was already involved with like you know, trying to come up with that look. And then Carlos Huante was actually involved, and he did a concept in there. And then I think was Gio Nakpil who actually did like the model for like based on that. And then that was kind of like the initial model they sent to us. But then the director said like, you know, we are not set on this. We are not quite liking it just yet. So if you guys can do some different passes here and give me some more ideas. So basically like me and Aaron McBride from ILM, which is like a great like concept artist, we started to actually redesign the whole thing. So we redesigned the character first, and then we split the work. So basically like the hands and feet, and I believe the teeth was done by Martin Murphy. I think I did the teeth actually, but he might have finished, I think. But the hands and feet was done by him, and then everything else was done by me. But I believe that like for the body itself, it was definitely HD. But for the teeth, I still have to, I would have to check. If it's something that's very hero, what happens sometimes is that we use a ton of UDIMs, you know, it's like it's just like we have like way too many UDIMs. Sometimes it's like it's completely overkill. But because that's the case, sometimes they use Mari to stamp and to place like textures, like super high resolution stuff and propagate across the teeth. And then that can be the case, you know, it's like maybe the ZBrush itself didn't have a lot of HD information, but maybe like the final thing, you know, is like it had a lot of super fine detail from maps. I think maybe that was the case.
And also a lot of details with wounds in the body and.
Oh yeah, man. Let's see. I think I have. I can show you here if I have my backup, because I have this authorized to go in my conferences when I go to conferences, and I have some of them here. I can show you this. Check this out. Let's do this. That's the portfolio, professional work, right? So I have some professional work in here. I can show you the stuff I did. The ones I normally present at the conferences. So I have Kong in here. So basically, like, take a look at this. So this here is actually the low resolution. So this is the lowest resolution of Kong. But what happened is that my supervisor, when I got to the show, he said, you know what? We need to do like super close-ups in his face. And we would rather not use like displacement, animated displacement mask for anything. So you can, if you can put most of the detail in the model itself, that would be great. So like, and I asked like, so how many polygons can you do like for a base mesh? They talked to the technicians in there and everything, and they said like, I think around 500,000 polygons should be okay for a base mesh. It was like a deal. So I went there and I basically like I planned the model to have something, let's see, like this. So the model itself, like around this area, is not as heavy, but when you get to the face, look at this, it's black, right? It's black in there. So basically like I managed to squeeze 250,000 polygons in the head and neck, and then another 250,000 around the rest of the body. So that way we get like, especially like hands, right? Don't need to be like super high res or anything, because they're gonna, you know, they're gonna be covered in fur and all that stuff. But and then I did like you know, it's like we start with muscles from humans, and then I kind of like build this muscle for him in here, and yeah. So there's a bunch of you know, close-ups like that you can see a lot of the detail. Obviously, it's kind of like backlit, but you know, it's like it was very fun character to work on. And it's the only actually movie that I worked at ILM that I got accredited as a supervisor. So I was supervising the assets for Singapore and Vancouver as well. A couple of my students actually worked with me. They are under my supervision doing this project in here. They took this class. But yeah, this is a cool scene that I like because I modeled both characters. So I modeled the skull crawler, the big one, not the small one, and then Kong. I had to model some of the gashes and everything. But Martin Murphy, again, he did a lot of the super fine detail on top, like my Avengers stuff, which I did like all the detail surface for the Hulk, and also like the extra wrinkles, you know, like, so again, this was modeled by Gio, but then I actually was the guy doing the micro expressions, right? Like all this extra crunch on everything, and then all the detail in this surface. And it was always started with Mark Ruffalo's scan, right? And then so we had the light stage scan like this, and we also had the, you know, it was like the life cast. So I basically like I projected both, so I had them separate, and then I could just like pick and choose whatever details I needed for them. So yeah, it was a fun project. But I really like to model this guy here. It's like the you know, it's kind of like a giant eel, because he kind of like was this chance to do a lot of hard surface mixed with organic stuff. And this was the first model I think I did at ILM that was fully HD, not the armature or anything like the armor, but the flashy parts. You know, it's like everything was like HD, because there's some close-ups in there, like this guy here. It's all HD geometry. And then from that point on, I mean, like it was just like every single model I did after that, it was like HD. I modeled this guy here. You might know him, Bumblebee, like for the last movie. Again, like it's a kind of like a teamwork, right? Like, so a bunch of artists work in different stuff, but all the yellow panels and everything in the head I sculpted. This is actually based on a concept from Furio. And Furio actually, he sent like a 3D model of the head. So I had to model certain things on my own, but for the most part, I was retopologizing what Fury built and then just like polishing the forms and making them look nicer, you know. But a lot of stuff sometimes you get nowadays is like sometimes you're retopologizing, but then I had to build all the other panels, you know. And then the internal parts like skeleton is normally built by other people. I had this movie, one of the first movies I worked in the industry was called Pan's Labyrinth. And this one is kind of like a little demo reel. I animated here for this shot. Like it was the first time you see the stick bug in the movie. So Guillermo del Toro was directing this movie, and he said, you know what, we're gonna have to model a baby in 3D inside of the womb, and it has to be animated. It's a short scene and everything. But the thing is, like, we asked them, a company, to actually build a baby for us, made out of silicone and everything. But they brought the baby to show us, man. Like it didn't have like enough like a skeleton inside, so it's all kind of like a shaky. It was kind of weird, you know. So they said like we need it in CG. So they asked me in our group, you know, it's like, can you guys model texture, animate, and everything in about a week and a half? It was like, sure. The placenta is already ZBrush, right? The placenta in there, and then I animated the baby. So basically, like someone rigged for loop. So you know, it's like lots of different things. For Rango, I built a bunch of characters. I built the Spirit of the West, what was kind of like, this is my sketch in ZBrush back in the day. It was kind of like a Clint Eastwood caricature, kind of like trying to follow the Sebastian Kruger's kind of style. This is how it turned out in the movie. It looks kind of cool. And we got the Oscar for this movie, which was pretty cool. You know, it's like Pixar didn't compete that year, and then ILM scooped up. But yeah, I built like the mayor, which was like the main bad guy, which is this turtle guy. And then some secondary characters like this little guy here. You know, it's like I actually just detailed this guy, but was sculpted by another artist. And yeah, I built this little guys like the Road Runners, you know. It's like, oh, Waffles, I built Waffles, which is a very stupid guy. It's pretty funny. But yeah, like had like being very lucky, you know, it's like with a lot of this stuff. And then Warcraft, we worked in a bunch of things. Like I modeled Draka for Warcraft. And then there's some scenes that she looks really good, and some other scenes her head looks completely deformed. There was something that happened with the rig, and the animators kind of blew it off. But yeah, I modeled this guy here. It's just like he shows up very quickly in the movie. And then I modeled Gul'dan, right, like the bad guy, like this guy. This is started by another artist, and then they gave it to me, so I kind of finish him up and make him stronger. This guy was modeled for another shot, actually. He was supposed to have a battle with Dorothan, but then they pulled it off because, you know, it's like they cut that scene out of it, but they liked what I did with the model with all those scars and shit. And it's like, you know, you have to use it somewhere. So there's this scene that he shows up and just screams and then dies. So it's pretty cool. And then Draka again, like she looks pretty nice under this environment here. Like she turned out cool in there, but then some other environments she looks a little weird. Yeah, it's Draka, golden again. Yeah, so fun stuff, man. But I have to show you this as well. Let's see. You have to see this, man, because yeah, that's a fun thing. So I told you about woodwork, right? So that's basically what I was doing when I was not working on the CG stuff. So I was building a table, for example, right? Which is the table that we have now in our kitchen. It looks like this. I built it on wheels so we can actually move it around, right? See that beautiful cabinet right there? I built that one as well. So
it looks very realistic.
So this one, for example, I got like some router bits that match the profiles of the old cabinets we had in the house. And I built this cabinet in here. It was basically a pantry. And then later I painted it. Everything you see here, you see like those boards, instead of like buying the door, I actually learned how to actually attach those boards together. So it's a bunch of boards attached with the biscuit joints and just like pressed against each other to build one single board. And then you go like to the router table. That's that tiny little router table right there. And I ran everything through it and I learned how to do everything. So like turned out very, very cool, you know? So in this very same spirit that I have like with CG stuff, you know, it's like I want to learn things and I want to try to do the best I can, you know, it's like with what, you know, the way, so it turned out like this. So it's a pantry now. And then we have like all the drawers in there, like we can fit a lot of stuff. Before it was just a crappy like desk that we had in there. It looked like that. So it's just a desk like that. And it was just using space, you know. And then we kind of like, we installed this ourselves. We do a lot of stuff around the house ourselves, you know. And then I did the cabinet in there. This is basically like matching that one that was part of it, but this is the new one that I did. So like I do that kind of stuff, like learned like woodwork. Again, like never did this in my life. Like 40 years old, like, oh, let me learn how to do woodwork, you know. So I did that, you know. It's like I wanted to build like a mini arcade with a Raspberry Pi, right? So I learned how to, you know, it's like to cut like acrylic and whatever, learn how to do some electronics in there. So I installed the whole thing with a battery in there. And then at the end, I had something that looked like this, completely custom. It works. It has a emulator inside. So basically like it runs MAME. And then we have like all kinds of games in there. And it's a tiny little thing. It's I think it's 8 inches. This is the size of the joystick right here. So that kind of stuff, you know, it's like I actually took pictures of the whole thing. It's separate in pieces. There's all the parts in here. You know, it's like I actually got a new printer just to be able to print those guys. So learning electronics as well, things that, you know, but this is my pride and joy right here. Check this out. I built a pinball machine at home, which is this thing here. I got all the components. This is when I first I was teaching a class for Ryan Kingsley back in the day. And with part of the money, I told my wife, I have to build this thing. And it was basically, it's a digital pinball machine. So this is just like a test that's showing like the back glass. That's a 32 inches TV. And this is a 42 inches TV, I believe. And then you have to put together in a cabinet. So the cabinet is basically like parts from a real arcade cabinet, the brand new stuff, coin door and everything. There's some control boards that come from Canada that control all the toys and everything. Everything is like the nudging works. So basically like you can actually nudge the machine and the digital machine recognize that. So the ball is nudged. You can see like, you can hear like physical sounds because we have this contactors inside. So they do the clack, clack, clack sounds and everything inside. So it's like physical sounds and physical lights as well. I put a bunch of like fans and all this stuff. So this is the cabinet I built. And this is like me in my garage and they're like putting things together, right? So that's basically like all the woodwork I had to do. This is basically how I started doing the woodwork. And then from here, then I start building cabinetry, you know, because I was like, oh, that shouldn't be that much difference. And so basically like that's how it started. And then I painted it. I built like this back piece in here, put the TV inside. And I have a pinball machine, which is like a Monster Bash, which is an actual pinball machine. So I copied all the profiles and everything to build it. And basically like putting the wiring here. And then you're going to see, you can keep going here. That's how it's starting to look like. And then this is my first run with the game. So I was running like Scared Stiff. This is all emulator. So basically like the front end, you can change the games. I have like 50 different games. And it's a full-size machine, you know. It's like I can show you like right side by side with my actual machine. This is kind of like it's a shaker motor. So and a wiper motor. So that one is the shaker. This is the wiper. This is like from a car actually. So the way it works is like this: when you hit all the targets in an actual pinball, basically like you hear some sounds when the targets are brought back. Like there's a sound that it makes. So this wiper motor actually simulates that. And in certain machines, there's a shaker as well. So if you hit certain targets, the whole machine shakes. So this one makes the machine shake. So it's like all those toys are connected through that Canadian board that I show you guys. And this is me learning how to do wiring. Look at that shit, dude. So like other contactors positioned in a perfect place, like to get the force feedback, you know. I actually installed a bunch of things, some designs I did it myself. I painted everything white. A lot of people were painting black. And I thought like, no, if it's white, if I shine a light in there, it's going to be pretty easy to see everything inside. So I painted white inside to be able to see things, like all the wires in there going on. I put like some sound. This is my design in here. I put like a little, how you call like those switches, right? I put the switch in here. So basically like, and I actually bend it this way. So when you open the door, he actually clicks the switch and enters the menu for the menu of the machine, so I can actually go through the settings and everything. This is the computer in the back. I put like this was an IKEA shelf that I had, like was a door actually. I transformed it to a shelf in there. So this is the back of it. I actually ordered this from eBay. Someone had like this kind of sticker in there, so I put to look more authentic, and then put like the credit, like the clack in there, and then everything, man, it turned out so good. Now, this was the biggest challenge here. Check this out. Normally, people are using like for the LCD plasma monitoring here. They use like LCDs nowadays, but it doesn't have the same warmth of a plasma monitor. And I want to get that warmth. So I started posting in this forum, and I started asking like, what's needed for you to install like an actual plasma that's that amber color that you see like with the dot. How we call it, like dot matrix display, right? Dot matrix display. I want to get that amber color. And they said, oh, you would need to get a plasma, but then it's impossible to install that in one of those machines. Like, why? Well, because it's complicated, because you need 2 different transformers to generate, like one is like 100 volts, the other one is 80 volts. And then there is a board that has to split this into all kinds of crazy voltages. It runs like 4 or 5 voltages inside of the machine. And I said, okay, but how can you do that? Oh, there's no way. But other people start chiming in. And after months of doing that research, since I started that thread, we started to assemble the pieces together. And someone managed to find a company that could make a dual tap transformer, which could run like 180 as well in the same. And then we would just feed that to this machine that's called like a piggyback board. And then this board would be like a board that you buy like to repair machines, for example. So this one splits all the tensions that you need. So you see like 100 and then 80 right there. And then from here, it generates all kinds of shit. See DMD Piggy. So with that, combined with this little board in here, we managed to finally make the plasma monitor work. And I still have, man, it's amazing. It looks really cool. This is like when I was putting things together, I got the logo and I was trying to make like a Rango theme because it was right around the time when Rango was out, but I ended up not doing it. And check this out, like I put those stickers inside to look more authentic. And I put this, which is like a little Easter egg. This is the name of my son, Matthias, my firstborn son. And I thought like maybe one day when he's older, he's gonna, be curious about opening this machine and seeing what's inside. And he's gonna find out that he inspected this machine as a little kid, So yeah, this is like the family playing there. So that's my actual machine in there. And that's my brother-in-law playing. This is Jamie, that's Matthias right there. This is my wife. We have an arcade as well running emulators in there. That's the actual Monster Bash. You see, like in an actual machine, you have like an amber kind of monitor in there. So I wanted that in the other machine. So let's see if they are playing here somewhere. Oh, and I did this too. I built this control panel for my pinball machine. And underneath it, I put like some suction cups. So we can actually stick to the top of the cabinet, and then you can run MAME here as well and play like arcade games in it. So you see right here, I'm playing like King of the Dragons from Capcom. like in horizontally in the pinball machine. And that's my actual pinball machine right there. So like, it's pretty cool, you know, it's like, it works great. And here, as you can tell, this is the digital pinball, and that's the wheel pinball. And look at the display, plasma, just the same. So like, man, it works really good. But it's the kind of stuff like the project like never ends, you know. It's like I have to go through it and kind of like redo a couple of things here and there. And then 2 years ago, my wife, she was unhappy with our backyard because since we had kids, we didn't do anything with the backyard. It was just a jungle in there. So one day we decided to actually clean it up. So we cleaned the whole backyard, removed all the grass and all the stuff. And we had this ugly set of stairs in here that was pretty ugly. And I decided like, okay, what do you want to do? She's like, oh, we just put some plants in there to look nice. I was like, no, since we're going to do this, let me spend some money. I can build a deck. And she says like, do you know how to build a deck? I was like, of course not. I never built a deck. I was like, but I can learn. I learned all this other stuff. I'm going to learn how to build a deck. So I learned how to build a deck. So I built this deck. This is the structure of the deck right there. Tutorials, right? Like tutorials from YouTube and internet. And then I built like a floating deck, basically like on this the stands. And then I put the whole thing in there in place. The hot tub, okay, how much does it cost to install a hot tub? People are charging like close to $3,000 to run the wiring. I was like, what the fuck? How do you pass the wire? Oh, it's very complicated. You cannot do that because you need a technician. I was like, oh, let me try. So I got the copy of the national code, and then I ran through the whole thing, like read the whole thing. And I was like, okay, I know how to install it. So I got the conduits, installed everything, got the inspector in there. The inspector inspected, passed, flying colors, got installed. Now we have like this nice backyard. It looks like this at night, right? Got little lights. So a beautiful deck, hot tub installed and everything. And I did everything. And I was like me and my wife cleaning up stuff and installing. And the deck is like, yeah, it turned out very cool, man. It's like a kind of like, it's a PVC material, but it's like perfect replica of wood, you know. It's like, it looks exactly like wood, and it's been there for like 2 years now. It never faded or anything. It looks perfect. It's not the tracks kind of crap, because the tracks look kind of plasticky, and this one looks like this, you know. It looks very nice. But yeah, dude, just like, you know, showing off some of the other stuff, because, you know, it's like there's so many things you can do in life, right? Like but the important thing is like to just like, you know, enjoy your family, do the things you need. This is my family right here. It's me, my wife, and my 2 kids, Matthias and Jamie. And that's it, man. I mean, like, we keep doing our thing, you know. It's like now we're homeschooling the kids basically. And then, you know, that's the 4 of us. Before it was just me, you know, like living in the United States on my own, and then thinking like, oh, I'm going to die alone, you know. Never thought about having kids, and now here we are, like 10 years later. Matthias is 10 now. Jamie's about to turn 7. And that's life, man. Work is just part of it, right?
Yeah, man. Now the skin hands sculpted makes all sense.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, like, yeah, family is more important than anything else. But one of the reasons I do those classes is actually to help to support my family, maybe like save some money for the kids and all that stuff, you know, and also to keep myself active and interacting with people, you know. You guys having you guys here, I mean, like, it's such a treat and an honor for me. I know a lot of you guys, like from the forums or like online, you know. It's like a lot of my students are people who actually I follow for a while. And it's just a treat, you know. It's like to feel like that I have something to contribute to the point that some people want to pay to see my classes, you know. It's like, this is a huge honor to me, like, especially coming from nothing, you know. It's like in Brazil, and like I posted some time ago, you know, it's like coming from nothing and becoming something, you know, not necessarily something big, but something, you know. Yeah, so thank you so much, guys, for, you know, for just being part of this, you know. It's like, and trusting that I have anything to offer.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah,
it's really awesome. Really inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, all that stuff's super cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and now I did more stuff. I did the whole floor downstairs. Now I put like brand new floor. I did the garage. The garage now has a nice little gym in there. But now we have like all the smoke in California. We are not working out at all because we are afraid to get intoxicated in there. But yeah. But man, yeah. So about the reviews on Saturday, I hope to see you guys there. You know, it's like again, it should take like as long as we want it to take. And again, I mean, like, thank you so much. Make sure that you understand that the model is never finished. It's just abandoned. It's just a matter of like how long you're gonna try to push things forward. You know, if it's something that you really want to do, like to make something to stand out from this ocean that we see on in the internet, right? Take your sweet time. You know, it's like put a lot of love in the character. Make sure that you try to clean up your forms. You know, it's like make sure that the relationships are in place. You know, it's like that things make sense when something is bending in a certain way. Try to understand what's causing that to bend. And, you know, it's like, it's basically like a bunch of cables being pulled when you have a facial expression, right? And, you know, it's like how, you know, it's how things like flex by emulating that feeling that I told you. You know, it's like try to touch those subjects virtually, basically. Like, you know, just try, you're modeling a piece of the skin, you know, like try to imagine you're touching that skin to get the feel of it, you know. And just more than anything, have fun. And I have fun every time, man. It's just like, sometimes I get stressed out, but then at the end of the day, it's just like another little mountain that I have to climb, you know. It's like, but I went through this so many times, like in so many different types of like challenges and stuff in my life, that to me is just like, this is nothing, you know. It's like and I really appreciate everything, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your stories. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you on the Facebook page, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, like the group. And I cannot wait to see what you guys gonna come up with. You know, it's like I always have like, you know, a lot of awesome work that comes out of those classes. And then I'm not gonna lie to you guys. You know, it's like if you post something that looks a little incomplete, or, you know, it's like kind of half baked, I'm probably not gonna be tempted to repost it. But if you post something that I can see your love in there, that looks cool and everything, you can be 100% sure I'm gonna be posted on my Instagram. That normally brings a bunch of followers for you guys. People get, you know, to know your work a little bit better. And then from time to time, like I did last time, I post like galleries. You know, it's like, okay, this is like a new batch of all the, you know, the cool work that came out of those classes. So it's good for everybody. It's good for me to show off that you guys are awesome. You know, I don't even need to do much. but also because, you know, it's like you get more visibility. You know, it's like I don't have like, I'm not like a Insta celebrity, but 60,000 is something. You know, it's like at least like you get some people to see more of your work. You know, so I'm gonna do my best to actually represent you out there if you post something really cool that make me really proud.
Awesome, Chris.
All right,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
You have a great
Thanks
one.
so much, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. I'm gonna miss you guys for reals.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So much, Chris.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Thank you.